What up, guys? About to go be on my buddy Michael's innovation podcast. Asked me to be on it. He actually lives in my building, which is super interesting. We met on the elevator. He's interviewed some pretty inspirational people and stuff like that. So, you know, I think it's pretty cool that he asked me to be on it after we just got done talking in the elevator a couple months back. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoy it.
Hi, Sim.
Hi, Michael. How's it going?
Good. Welcome to Craving the Future.
Sweet.
What do you want to talk about today?
I don't know. What was our topic? I emailed you. I can't.
Well, you started talking about the future of digital mobility, and then there was something about connectivity. You framed it as connectivity or consumer connection, something like that.
Oh yeah, using digital products to shape the way like how we kind of work with consumers, I guess you can say. Or I mean, not work, like connect with the consumer.
Yeah, and
more on the deeper level.
Who's we? Well, the people at large, or you and me?
Oh yeah, like me and you and the people at large. Just kind of like we, as in like the people that are creating this stuff. Like me, I work at Nike in innovation, so I mean on the digital side. So I mean, what we're trying to do is do the same thing in terms of how can we make this product more engaging. And I think a really good company that does that is Apple. Apple, like during Steve Jobs' times, Apple was really wanting to, hey, let's make a product where it's like the extension of the human body, right? So they made the headphones, like, you know, and then they had the commercial of it like just being white and connected to the person, and then they got the iPhone, and then they created this whole ecosystem now with HomePods, right? They don't ever want you to get off their platform now. So like you're listening to the iPod in the car, or I mean your iPhone in the car connected to the car, and then you're getting in your home, and now it's connected to your home now with the HomePods thing. I think that's a really good example of trying to connect to the consumer. So is it about ecosystem? I mean, do you think that there's individual connections, or do you think that connectivity is about the ecosystem, everything being together? I think it is about the ecosystem, but I really think it's about not only the ecosystem, but how they can use that ecosystem to deliver any type of content that they wish to please, right? So once you're in the ecosystem, they have you, right? Yeah. So like me, I'm a huge Apple guy in terms of like my product, so they have me. I don't think I'm ever going to switch. Right. Just doesn't make sense. I have a MacBook, I have an iPhone, it connects to my car, I have the AirPods. Yep. I've got Apple TV. Apple TV. So everything is kind of, I'm in their ecosystem now, right? So now if they deliver something that makes sense, I'll probably buy it, whether if it's a product or a service, or if it's maybe a digital, you know, something digital in terms of like an app. Right. So what makes sense? Like, how do you know something makes sense to you? In a digital world? Yeah. I mean, there's. I honestly, I always use the same kind of example to people. I was like, it makes sense to me if it's easy to use as Google, or if it's easy to understand. Hey, this is what it's used for. When people are like, it's really complicated to explain, then I'm like, you know, oh, it's so complicated, I can't really explain it. Well, then how do you think the average consumer is going to react to that? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. A person that's not technology or technology sound or whatever you want to, for lack of a better term, right? It's a paradoxical example that it's the Apple product is as easy as to use as Google. Yep. I also said something in the email about, like mindset. I think I threw that in there too. I don't know. I think mindset has a lot to do with being innovative, or trying to create something for the consumer, or trying to just create something in general, whether if it's a real product or like a digital product, or even a service that you're offering. So mindset of the creator, is that what you're talking about? Like you have to have certain mindset in order to create something? Yeah, so for me what's really important is, for example, what's really important to me is the people that you surround yourself with, right? So if you surround yourself with people that are not necessarily, they don't have to be like-minded, because that's kind of hard to find. The like-minded person, that means everyone's like me, that means we're going to start a huge company probably, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I mean, finding people that, you know, support you, that keep your head clear, that aren't negative and positive, that opens up the door to being creative, being innovative, thinking of new ideas. You know, I always say, like, you know, it's hard to do something when like your home life's not correct, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Right, right. Because I experienced that personally, my own personal experience, where I worked my ass off, and then I come home, and the person that I was with at the time my girlfriend or my ex-girlfriend wasn't supportive, or that's what it didn't feel like to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it messes up your head.
Yeah, because then you realize, like, am I what I'm doing, is it really that important?
Yeah.
You know, it's important to me, but this doesn't feel important to this other person. And then for me, it's like I got lost in somebody else's point of view on what they thought of me, and I cared more about what they thought of me than I thought of myself. And I think that's a kind of a dangerous path to go on.
How do you stretch your imagination? Like, you know, how do you make sure that you're not doing the same thing over and over again really well, but you're always venturing out into something new?
You know, I find imagination, or like to find, like, whether if it's a new idea or just kind of like get away from the norm, is when I talk to other people.
Okay.
And then they'll sit there and we'll talk about something like in this conversation, and maybe you see a problem or you address a problem. Man, I wish that was easier. And then next thing you know, it sparks an idea, you know, and then it sparks a bunch of ideas, and then you take something out of it, or it gets put in the back of your brain, and then a year later you're in a similar situation, and you're like, I remember we had this issue back then. I wonder if we could do something about it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So when you said that, you looked at the microphone. Was there something you were thinking about the microphone, like this should be a little bit different?
I actually was.
Yeah. What were you thinking?
I actually looked at it and I was like, I wonder if there's I don't know. I was actually thinking of making a mic. I don't know if they even have it, but making one mic and then one mic, and the both mics are like this.
Oh, a dual. So it's literally dual?
Yeah, but it's one mic still.
I like that it's retro.
I don't know, like it's retro too.
You know, I mean, it's cool. It's got a cool color. It's almost like a human being. It's got this blue stand to it, and then there's this top part, which could be a guy's head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's crazy how it picked up the sound when we replayed it.
No, it's an excellent mic. Thank you, Peter Himmelman. He's the musician who turned me on to that. And then I've learned that a lot of podcast people are using that.
Oh, what's it called? It's called like a Blue Yeti or something?
It's called a Blue Yeti.
Yep. I saw it on Amazon today, and I was like, looking at podcast mics. Geez, you don't even need two. You could just use one.
Yeah, there's different settings for this. So there's a setting for, you know, you and I having a conversation together. There's a setting for a group of people, or there's a setting for me just doing a voiceover.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, so what are you doing with film these days?
I have my YouTube channel. I don't even know if I sent it to you or not, but
no.
I've been doing a lot of I don't know, I met a huge entrepreneur. That was one of the entrepreneurs I looked up to, signed my book, Gary Vaynerchuk. Met him in New York City through a friend, and documented that whole thing, hired a videographer. But then when I don't know, it all started I don't know how the film stuff started, honestly, was I always wanted to make an impact in some way, shape, or form on another person, because I think that's like the truest form of fulfillment, is when you give somebody something, whether if that's knowledge or your time, and you don't ask for anything in return. And I really wanted to do more of inspiring people. So I've always listened, because I got inspired when I was younger, and I had one of my first jobs at a auto parts store, being a delivery driver, and all I used to listen to was Tony Robbins. That was on replay. I think every single video he's ever put out, I think in that when I was 18 to 19 time frame, I think I listened to it 3 times.
Wow.
And I didn't even know, I don't consider, even though I could be a millionaire or billionaire, I still probably wouldn't consider myself successful, because it's such a hard term, because everyone defines it so differently. But sometimes people will say, oh, you're successful, but I was nah, I still don't think I'm where I want to be, my own goals and accomplishments, I still haven't done some of those things.
Do you know where it is you want to be?
I know what I want to do, and that's going to result in having to build something first, like an empire, so to speak, and then use those funds that I build there to, what I want to open is a YMCA center for kids with single moms and single dads.
Cool.
Because I kind of came from that place myself.
I see. And
I want to build something like that where we could have volunteers, we could have somebody from film volunteer, we could have somebody from business volunteer, somebody from art, music, everything, and math teachers, whatever, and then sports center there, video games, and then a kid could come in and have every single resource at his fingertips, and he can really choose to go with his mind on what he wants to do, not what his teacher's going to tell him. And I think that would be the place where, I don't know, I think something great could happen there. Some kid could come in and say, hey, I want to do marketing. This guy's teaching business on marketing, and then he goes there for 2 weeks and kind of sits there after school a couple hours, and he's like, I don't really like it. Mm-hmm. Then he goes into art, and he's like, dude, I love, like, his brain gets triggered in some way, shape, or form, and that's what he wants to do, you know?
Yeah, that'd be a new paradigm in learning.
Yeah.
I wish my son had that growing up, because it's a pretty standard path going through school.
It is.
You know, and you're supposed to accomplish certain things in order to get you this degree, and then you're going to do this thing afterwards. But there's so many different ways to learn, so many different pathways of what you learn and how you apply that in life.
Yep. And I didn't go to college. I didn't step foot into a college. But from the age of 18 to 19 and a half is a story that I have, working 13 jobs in that time frame. And my mom's accountant was like, dude, what is your son doing? But I was trying to figure it out. Like, I was like, all right, I'm going to go I worked for a marketing company, a pawn shop, multiple different retailers, auto parts store, selling cars, call center, sales, inbound, outbound. Like, I tried everything. I was like, man, this is like, I don't even know, at 19 and a half. And then my parents started getting a divorce. And I have an older brother and sister. And I was like, oh, crap. I was like, I thought I could ride it out with my parents a little longer. Like, I thought I could ride it out in terms of like, oh, I thought I could mooch off them just a little bit longer, you know, like try to figure out by the time I'm 22, right?
Yeah.
But then I didn't have that option anymore. Because I was like, oh, crap, my dad's moving out. And I never was close to my dad. Didn't like each other really. And then my mom was selling the house and moving to California. And I just hit 20 at this time, and I'm like, dude, I literally have to figure something out. And then I just kind of tuned everything out. And then this kid was developing mobile apps, and I started talking to him. And he let me go. He introduced me to his friend via phone, and his friend let me sleep on his couch on the East Coast. I sold everything I had. I slept there for almost 3-4 months. Just to learn like the basics of building mobile apps. And then his buddy that I never even met hooked me up with a job at Microsoft, and that's kind of how it all started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what exactly did you do at Nike, and why are you moving to New York?
So what I do at Nike is I work in the innovation. So I work in the innovation studio, we call it. We purchased a studio from. We purchased a studio that ran there in New York City.
Okay.
Like they built a lot of cool digital products and stuff like that. So we brought it under the Nike umbrella, and they built a great team there. It was part of the Virgin Mega Group, so under like the Richard Branson kind of group.
Right.
So they built some awesome, cool products there. Digital products, like cool ways to interact with cool launches that are going on with our shoes, concerts, things like that. Really cool ways to get the consumer engaged, as opposed to, oh, I'm just going to buy a pair of concert tickets on the internet. Like, you had to kind of do it in a certain way, like answer questions about the artist, sit in a virtual line, you know, stuff like that to get the best ticket. So it made it more exciting as opposed to just like a normal, hey, let's buy something and that's it.
Yeah.
So that studio there, what I do on that side is like a engineering manager. So testing, not only like testing our back-end services, making sure that all our new features our developers implement are correct in terms of like features are working as they're supposed to. Is a user, when we deploy this to our 1.5 million or 1.5 million daily users, are they going to have any issues with it? Are they going to still be able to check out, buy shoes, right? Because revenue generating apps, so it's very like crucial to the company, right? So doing that, that's what I do.
Wow. Excited about moving to New York?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm like, right now, tomorrow the movers come tomorrow. And like, I move out officially Sunday, but the movers are coming tomorrow, and I'll probably clean up my place.
Crazy.
But I don't know, like I have this, I'm super excited, and then I'm super nervous. I don't know why. But it's like the good nervous, you know? Like, oh my God, I know what to expect. I was just there in December for 2 weeks. But
something new, and where are they down in Chelsea? The office?
Manhattan, Midtown. Like,
Midtown.
Literally, like, in the heart, you know what I mean?
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I'm super, I don't know, I'm excited, for sure, 100%. But, like, there's this part of, like, unknown, too, you know? Which, it gets me excited, but it gets me nervous in a good way, so it's like.
So I have a question for you that's not necessarily an easy question to answer, but the question is, what do you crave in your life?
You know, I've been thinking about that actually over the past like month, which is super weird that you ask that. And then like two things came to my mind where I was in love with this girl, so I felt like I craved a relationship because I felt like my career was where it was supposed to be at that point. I was working at Nike. I had everything going. Well, I worked at Nike for 2.5 years, and I had to take a 90-day break, and then I came back. So like when I say was, I just think of like I was, and then I took a break. But I was working at Nike, and I was with her, and I was like, man, I feel like this is like it, in terms of like, this is like where I'm supposed to be. With
her, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I have my career. I'm a young guy that makes good money, and I feel like not only can I support myself, I can support her, and we had 2 dogs, or 3 dogs actually. And I thought I craved that.
Okay.
And then I realized after like some of the things happened during the breakup and me kind of figuring out more then I really figured out myself during that process. And then it kind of changed, and now I'm craving to like help people. Before it was like, I was so worried about like life, only me, only her, and our dogs, and that's kind of it. And I didn't really care about anything else. And then after I realized I put all my heart and soul into one person and they didn't feel the same, it makes you look at things a little differently.
So when you think of craving people, like I thought that was a really cool idea that you mentioned, essentially a version of the YMCA for single moms and dads with kids.
Yeah.
But what is it inside of you that makes you want that? What are you hoping to feel?
So for me, I didn't have any resources growing up as a kid. Sometimes I still think.
Sit down.
Sometimes I still think. Sometimes I still like. I'll be in a situation like. I was in a room with Gary Vee, or I mean, in a meeting coffee shop with Gary Vee, and like that got set up, and he's a huge famous entrepreneur. Like, I'll send you his stuff after. He's written 5-time New York New York Times bestselling author. Built a huge $300 million company.
Wow. Yeah,
so
I'd like to meet him.
So when I met him and I was sitting there, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, I don't even feel like, you almost feel like you're not even supposed to be there. You know what I'm saying?
Surreal.
Yeah, but then also at the same time, I was like, you know what? I worked my ass off to be here. Right? I put myself in this situation to be in this situation. And
life just paid off that way.
Yeah, and then, so what's inside of me, like, in order to do that, like, wanting to do that really is like, so being able to tell that story of like how I went from sleeping on my buddy's couch, like slowly moving through over the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any resources, so I couldn't imagine giving a kid the resources to do what he wants, and it gets these kids out of trouble, not doing drugs, off the street essentially. But also, I'm super empathetic towards the parents that have to work longer hours and they can't pick up their kid from school at 3 or 4 o'clock. But they know their kid might get in some trouble because he's being a little troublemaker recently. Right. So they don't know what their kid's gonna do between 3 and 6 until they get home or whatever.
Yeah, that's a dark couple of hours.
Yeah, and I don't know what. I just want to be remembered for somebody that like, did something to like make society better.
Yeah.
Like, so if I die, like I just had some good friends, their younger brother just died at 19, known him for 6 years, went to his funeral on Sunday. And every experience that's been happening, like has really been opening up my eyes like crazy. Because I've experienced like 2 close deaths to me, that one and my grandpa, over the past like 4 months. So they've really shown me like, all right, being at the funeral, like what are they being remembered for? Right. I never went to a funeral.
Yeah.
I never went to my grandpa's because he was in California and it was like last minute and like I was working and it kind of sucked. But going to my buddy's funeral this past Sunday, I was like what is he being remembered for? Listening to the people talk up there and stuff.
Yeah, my wife and I have talked about that. How would we want to be remembered? And for me as a father, I mean, there's a couple of things. It's what do you want to put on your gravestone? Not that I'm going to die, but if you did, but it's more of a chronicle of your life. And then what kind of ethical will would you like to leave?
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about ethical wills. And what's the narrative that you want to share with the world, in particular your kids?
Yeah.
That, your hopes for them in terms of how they live their life.
Yeah, so I don't know. For me, that's what drives me. It's like when somebody messages me, because I push out a lot of Instagram, Facebook like videos and like content.
Yeah.
In terms of around like bringing more positivity to the world, like, and people message me back and they're like, man, like I ran into somebody like, oh, I've seen your videos and I never knew who they were in Portland, and I was like, this is crazy.
So I've seen you run around with the camera and you're shooting. What are you actually shooting?
I'll have to show you.
Well, I'd like to see it, but I mean, what's the theme?
Yeah, I can show you after. The theme is, it's almost like, so we filmed a couple like vlog style.
Yeah.
So like I went to meet up with 3 buddies for coffee. One buddy is a business owner. One buddy has a podcast, like top 25 podcasts or top 50 podcasts on iTunes for mobile apps.
Huh.
He's like an innovator on the mobile app side.
Huh.
Like he interviews some crazy people like CEOs of and founders of huge billion-dollar companies. So, and he's in Portland. And then like another one was a kid who wanted some advice. So I just filmed all 3 meetings. It was super interesting. And
you made it into one story?
Yeah, like one video.
Oh. Did you find some sort of common thread of the stories, or did they?
It was kind of just like doing the same thing here, just like sitting talking, and then like I'll show you the videos after. It'll be easier to understand. More of like, I'm trying to inspire people to like have their own voice.
Okay.
Because I was the type of person that, so I always had a voice, right? So like when I was with this girl, because it's the best example that I could use, is it felt like it was suffocated. Because I never really got to be who I wanted to be as a person.
Right.
Because I was so worried about what they thought of me.
Mm-hmm.
And then like when they did think of something about me, I took it like, this is crazy. This is something I always want to do, and they aren't questioning why I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really care to be involved with it. They're just kind of like, whatever. And yeah, that really pushed me to like help people have their own voice too.
That's a common sort of Jungian archetypal problem, you know, that people identify who they want to be early on and what kind of person they want to be. They have a certain amount of years when they're younger where they're kind of experiencing that experience, being rebellious or courageous or creative or wise or being a caregiver.
Yeah.
And then society somehow closes in on you and says, no, you should do this and you should do that, and the schools and the teachers and the politicians in some cases, and in governments in some cases, in foreign countries where not enough freedom, and eventually you work your way out of that and individuate, find out who you are, and live that life. You know, I try to inspire creativity. I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast in general.
Yeah,
that people listen to it, get other points of view, understand how other people became creative, or how did they create what they did, and what's their view of the future, and so share those ideas. Yeah,
and I think it's super, like, I think the biggest thing for me is like, so besides craving, like helping people doing that stuff, like, I sometimes sit back and I'm like, all right, I've been single for like 7-8 months. When I was with the relationship with her, I was single for my entire life. Like, you know how you date a girl for a month or two and you're like, yeah. But like I was so focused on career stuff, and then when I settled in, I mean, it'd be cool to like, not right now, maybe like another couple of years to like get back into like, like, all right, not find somebody, just like let it naturally happen. But, then get married. I've always thought that, like, having kids and raising the next generation correctly.
Yeah.
So I kind of crave that, but not right now as I did before, like when I was with her. But
well, you're in transition.
Yeah.
You're going to go to New York. You're going to meet all these new people, have this new life out there, film new stories, and it's a pretty exciting time in your life.
Yeah. I'm still young. I'm only 25.
Yeah.
So I have to remind myself that too, even though I feel like 40 inside, like in my head.
I was 25 when I first moved to Oregon. I was living in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
In the depth of winter, and I worked for a company out there, a food company that owned a bunch of smaller businesses out here. So they asked me if I wanted to move to Oregon one day, and I did.
Wow.
And then just, pretty much stayed here. I went